everybody, today we're going to talk about dissociative identity disorder, otherwise known as multiple personality disorder. And if any of you have been a long-time viewer, you know that I had a video come out a long time ago that was titled this. But what I actually talked about in that video is maladaptive daydreaming. And I'll link that video here because it's my bad that I mislabeled it and then made a thumbnail that didn't quite appropriately identify the video. And the truth of it is that when I was watching that video, I started out talking about DID and then I went into maladaptive daydreaming and never came back. So I apologize, but let's get into the real nitty-gritty about what DID is. Since this is a diagnosis, I am looking into my DSM, and I'm going to read to you the diagnostic criteria, and then I'm going to come back and go through the first two criteria because there's so much to be said about these, and then I'll finish with what treatment options are available. Okay? So let's get going. The diagnostic criteria reads that dissociative identity disorder can be diagnosed if there is a disruption of identity characterized by two or more distinct personality states, which may be described in some cultures as an experience of possession. So what that really means is that we're experiencing a whole nother personality, okay? These signs and symptoms may be observed by others or reported by the individual. That is the A. B, recurrent gaps in the recall of everyday events. There's a lot of amnesia that's associated with this, where people won't remember whole chunks of time, whole periods of their life, and whole chunks of their day and what they did. They may wake up and notice, wake up from that state and see they've purchased something that no one else could have purchased for them, or drew something that they know they had to create, yet they have no memory of doing either of those things. Now C says the symptoms cause, and this is like all diagnoses, says the symptom has caused clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. So it's impairing our functioning. Now the fourth, or the letter D, is that the disturbance is not a normal part of broadly accepted cultural or religious practice. And they also note that this isn't like kids having imaginary friends or play dates. That's kind of something that children go through, and that's not DID, okay? And the last is that it cannot be attributable to the psychological effects of a substance. So this can't be because someone is high or on drugs, and that's something that should be assessed. If you're a clinician thinking someone may have this, you may make sure they do, a blood or urine sample to make sure that there are no drugs in their system. Now, like I said, we're going to go into more detail in the first two criterion. Now, the first one, if you remember, was that there's a disruption of identity characterized by two or more distinct personality states. And they talk even more about how people with dissociative identity disorder may report feeling that they've suddenly become depersonalized. Almost like we talk about in dissociation, because this is a dissociative disorder. We talk about in dissociation where you can feel like you're kind of out of body, like watching yourself do something. Many who have DID report feeling that very same way. Many also report that they'll have these really strong impulses that they normally would never have, or things that feel like they're not even their own, but they have to do it and they're compelled to do it and they're not sure why. And it feels very ego dystonic, meaning it's not comfortable to have this. This isn't something that feels good to us. It feels against who we are. Some even report feeling like a whole different person. They may feel extremely large and muscular. Others report feeling really small and childlike. Some even feel that they're the opposite gender, or some will smoke when they would never smoke. There are a lot of characteristics that feel unlike ourselves and not related to us or associated with us at all, but we have no control over them kind of taking over our bodies. Now we're moving on to the second criteria, or criterion B. And if you remember, it's when we have those gaps in memory, or the amnesia that's associated with DID. And they talk about this because DID is a trauma-caused disorder. People who have DID have had a severe trauma in their past, and many of them don't even remember it. If you want more information on this, you can click over here to my repressed memories video, but I just wanted to start off with that because that's why there's amnesia associated with DID. Okay, now I'm reading from my DSM again, but they say that the dissociative amnesia of individuals with DID manifests in three ways. The first being gaps in remote memory of personal life events, like they won't remember portions of their childhood. The second is lapses in dependable memory. Like, what happened today? Or maybe I have a well-learned skill, like at my work, I work on computers and now I can't even remember how to do that, and I have no idea how I ever did it. And the third is that discovery of evidence of their everyday actions and tasks they don't recollect. Like before, when I was telling you that maybe they'll wake up and they'll have a new pair of jeans and a painting that there's no one else in the house, no one else would have bought that or created that, and they know it's them, but they have no memory of it happening. They even talk about people with DID having what we call dissociative fugues. Now, dissociative fugue is when you will not remember, you'll dissociate and not remember travel, getting somewhere. There was an article when I was researching about this where someone woke up from a dissociative state in Japan. They had no idea why they were going there. They didn't know why they got on the plane. If was it work related? Was it for fun travel? They had no idea, and it can be really frightening. And just for clarification, know that the amnesia that I'm talking about isn't relegated to only the trauma that I've experienced. It would be something that maybe just happened in my regular everyday life. There's amnesia throughout people with DID's life, and it has nothing to do with the trauma necessarily. It can just be me going about my day and I have no recollection of it. But the good news is that recovery is possible. There are treatment options, things that we can do. Because when I was researching this, I found out that 70% of people with DID have attempted suicide, and multiple attempts are common. So if you're out there and you're struggling, or someone you know is struggling and you're feeling hopeless, know that you're not alone. Know that there are things that we can do so that this dissociation and the amnesia that comes along with it can go away. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of ways to treat trauma, because if you remember, DID is something that is caused by trauma. So EMDR, any of the treatments that I talked about in my PTSD video, you can click here to go there, will help with this. But just with regard to DID, know that the whole goal of treatment is what they call final fusion, meaning that we're trying to integrate all of the different multiple personalities or other personality states, that's what they call them, right? Or can all come back together and we can be one whole self again. So that is the ultimate goal of treatment. And they recommend talk therapy. As with all trauma work, it's really, really important that the client is ready and motivated to change, because this can be really difficult. Trauma work is hard. If any of you out there are working on trauma, I know how hard it is. I know how exhausting it can be. I know that a lot of you who have done EMDR in the comments below that video told me that you just sleep the rest of the day. It is really hard work, but it can get better. And the thing about DID that is interesting is that it's important when we're working with you, and if you're working with a therapist, make sure that they're treating all of your personalities equal, because they're all part of you, and they were created as a way for you to survive a trauma and for you to get through it. And so if we have to create an alternate person, an alternate universe that we kind of live through, maybe our alternate personality is someone who's really feisty and fights back, because we needed that in the moment when we were maybe being abused. And so know that they all have a right to be there, and they're there for a reason. But it's causing us trouble, right? Our functioning is impaired. And so through therapy, the whole goal is slowly fusing them through working through the trauma. So know that it can take time. Talk therapy is the #1 recommended way, and individual therapy, not family therapy, because it's really healing you and working on you so that you can feel like yourself again and be that one united self 24/7. I hope that gives you a better idea of what dissociative identity disorder is, how it can feel, how it can manifest itself, and I know that everyone's experience is different, so please let us know in the comments how your experience has been and what treatments worked for you. But the research that I did said that any trauma treatment is great, talk therapy being the most recommended, and it shows the best outcomes. And know that you're not alone. It's very common. It's very common for our brain to find ways to help us get through trauma and survive. We're survivors. And know that there are people out there, specialists available to help you. So please share this video, let other people know. You never know who may be struggling. A lot of this goes undiagnosed for a long period of time, and some people are great at hiding it. So click here to subscribe if you're new. I put out videos twice a week and you don't want to miss them. And if you want to know what else I'm doing on social media, follow me here. And if you want more information on dissociation and videos like this, click over here, and I will see you next time.